And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. This is the last Monday because next Monday it will be a different show, a new show, an adjusted show. Next Monday is the big transition.
Well, it doesn't mean it won't be Monday, though.
Yeah, but this is the last Monday for this variation of the show. Mulaney at Penn State. I went and saw John Mulaney last night. Just some interesting tidbits. A couple of things I noticed. Really, really interesting. Rihanna in the Super Bowl. The NFL picked Rihanna as their halftime show. I find that a little ironic. Maybe we'll talk about it. Pigskin recap. I think a lot of things going on locally, a lot of things going on Penn State, a lot of things nationally. Kind of a crazy NFL day yesterday, so we'll do a pigskin recap at the end. Mark, on this last Monday, how are you feeling today?
I feel good because the Cowboys are going to win tonight. And there's no real need to recap the weekend because the only game that matters is tonight. But so I have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I said, when you asked me how I'm doing today, I got an answer.
Yeah.
When I run for president,
okay,
we're adding this to my platform. Tell me what you think of this.
Okay.
At every drive-through, there should be a shot clock.
On the ordering board?
Yes. I sat behind a lady today.
Okay.
And there was only two of us.
Yes.
Her and me. By the time she got done, there may have been 20 of us.
Okay.
When I'm telling you, she was there for 5 minutes.
Okay.
And when you're just sitting there, like 5 minutes was that big of a deal. You know, you wait for the bus for 5 minutes. You know, what's 5 minutes?
Yeah.
When you're sitting in a drive-through line behind one person, I understand if it's a minivan, they got 17 kids and they're trying to, one person.
Yeah.
5 minutes. There's an etiquette. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just assuming.
Okay.
You can glance at the board. You can kind of figure out but when you pull up to one of these places, I'm assuming you've been there before.
Yeah.
You pretty much know what you want and you go with it. You do not get to the board and read the entire menu.
Okay.
When I pulled up, have you ever done this? When I literally got to the microphone and the lady said, "I'll be with you in a minute." And I said, "Okay." And then when she came back, she started with, "Sorry for your wait." And I said, "Did that lady order one of everything?"
Okay.
She said, "I thought she was going to. She just kept changing her mind."
Okay.
So then my next question was, like in the middle of it, I was not in a rush for time. I was okay. So I just kind of sat there and laughed and figured this would be an interesting etiquette topic of worldly etiquette. I'm wondering, too, if at any point, if I would have laid on the horn and yelled something out the window, like pick something, do you think she would think that I'm the idiot?
Yes.
Even though, do you think anywhere in her mind, she's like, well, I have been here for like the majority of a sitcom.
All right. You're going to, because there's a lot of things to touch on here. First of all, let's start here because it's the most recent. If you're a horn honker, you're wasting your time. Because the moment you honk your horn, you are now the idiot, jackass, whatever you want to call it. You have now become the person that you think the other person is.
I don't always agree with that.
Really?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't honk my horn.
Tell me a time. Have you, I can honestly tell you, I don't think I have ever honked my horn.
What if you're sitting at a red light and the person in front of you doesn't go?
I don't think I've ever honked it.
Well, then you're a moron because that's what it's there for.
You think so?
Oh my gosh. You don't.
I don't think I've ever hit my horn.
And understand you grew up in Blossburg where they don't have red lights.
I understand that, but I also left Blossburg occasionally and did other things.
You've never hit your horn?
I don't think I think the gain does not exceed the cost of honking your horn. I think once you
What's the cost? It's free.
I think you have now become the jerk. I don't think it's worth it.
No, I think there's a level of you're an idiot. I noticed it, and I'm making sure you're aware that we've noticed it.
So then, why did you not honk your horn?
Because
because you didn't want to.
Because in this instance,
you didn't want to.
In this instance,
because you didn't want to be the jerk.
Often, haven't you almost ever been in an accident and you laid on the horn? Because I have. I'm not
that though. Are we?
I have laid on the horn before.
I understand, but are we counting that? I feel like that's not what we're discussing.
I mean, maybe, but isn't that just the same way of saying "yo, bozo"? Like,
no. I've hit my horn if something was happening and someone was not alert, like not because they were
well,
sitting at
not
a
preventative
light.
of an accident, but I mean, like,
See,
you
I
weren't
think you're
paying attention. You're an idiot.
This is going off the rails. I feel like those are two different things. Like if I see somebody's about to get hit or they don't realize someone's coming from the other direction, of course you.
Well, that's preventative. No, I'm not
Yes.
talking about that.
Okay. But if we're talking about like the difference between being patient for 10 more seconds versus hitting your horn, I feel like you've lost the moment you hit your horn. The moment you've hit your horn, you've lost.
Oh, no. Okay, we will disagree. If you're sitting at a red light and the light turns green,
Yeah.
the person at the light has about 3 seconds.
3?
How long does it take to step on the gas? If they haven't gone in 3 seconds, they're not paying attention. They're reading their
Where
phone.
do you have to go that's so like valuable? Like where do you have to be? Time's a constant.
You're supposed to be paying attention while you're in the car. When the light turns green, you go.
Uh-huh.
If you're not going when the light's green, you deserve to be honked at. I've been honked at a bunch of times.
Okay, maybe you're trying to finish a text. Maybe
Exactly.
Maybe the kid behind
fix
you.
it. Finish it later.
Maybe the kid behind you's kicking the car seat. Like you don't like who
Kicking the
knows?
car seat.
Like maybe you dropped your water down beneath the seat. Maybe you can't find your wallet. Like who knows?
Why do you need your wallet sitting in a red light?
Because you need to make sure. Because maybe you need to go home to get it. I don't know.
Well, then pull over. Don't hold me up because you can't find your wallet.
I guess the difference is like holding you up for what? 3 seconds?
Whatever.
5 seconds?
Whatever.
10 seconds?
No, you're wrong on this one. You can't sit in it.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay, here's my issue with the shot clock at the drive-thru.
Okay.
I feel like the shot clock would need to be dictated on how many people you're ordering food for.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Because if
it's flexible.
If you throw up like a 24-second shot clock, but I have like 5 people in the car,
nope.
I mean, we're not getting it done. It's not happening. Let me ask you this. I'm really big on like if there's multiple people in the car, everyone should be ready and everyone should say their order. Nothing drives me more insane than when the person at the driver's seat is supposed to say everybody's order.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that too.
Like if you're in the passenger seat, yell across what you want, and then when it's time for the back seat, you roll down the window.
No, I'm good with that too. Okay. Yeah, I'll do that too. Just like, hey, tell her.
Yeah, no, the people that expect you to tell them their order,
you're the order relayer.
They're the worst. Those are the worst.
You know who's the worst? The person who takes 5 minutes in front of you.
If she's changing her mind, yes, that's pretty bad. But you still didn't honk, which is the whole point of this argument.
No, I didn't honk because I kind of felt bad for it. I knew it wasn't, but
you would then have become the jerk.
But and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. Yeah. But my question is, when I honk, and then she thinks, okay, he is a jerk. Is there any self-awareness to the point where like he's a jerk, but I am kind of taking way too long here? Totally. And that's my question. And not knowing this person, I have no idea whether they would have or not. But that was my thing as I'm sitting there, because I didn't even like I wasn't fuming or I wasn't. But I was like, if I honked right now and yelled, "How hard is it?" Because it's really like, how hard is it to order at the drive-thru? Mm-hmm. Would there be any part of he's got a good point, or would there just be like he's the worst person on earth?
I think you would just be the worst.
I think so too. That's why I didn't do it. But I could have. I would have been justified. Listen. If you ever sit in, have you ever had this happen? This is fun. So if you have to be not driving, you have to be riding shotgun. When you're sitting behind someone at a red light, and like the instant it turns green, you just reach over and lay on the horn. Haven't you ever done that to somebody? Because then when they look, like whoever the driver is looks like the most impatient. Yeah, that's fun. If you can ever pull that off, that's it.
I would be lying if I said there have probably been times in my life where I forgot my car had a horn. That's how little I have actually like even thought about using the horn.
Here's the other one that's fun. And this is, you'll be good with this because you're from Blossburg where everyone has pickup trucks. If you ever 3 guys in the front of a pickup truck, if you can get it so you're the furthest on the passenger side, so there's obviously driver and then the guy scrunched in the middle,
Okay.
and then you kind of duck down. So as they're driving down the road, it just looks like they're two guys that are snuggled up next to each other. That's kind of fun too. And for a while, they won't understand what you like. You make it look like you're tying your shoe or something, and then, but then the whole, like, to everyone else, it looks like these two are sitting on each other's lap.
I would love for someone to make a simulation of what you just take all the descriptors that you have said of Blossburg and for them to just simulate it to see, just so people, it would just be all trucks, all farms,
No red
and
lights.
there'd be no red lights. It would be actually in Blossburg there are no red lights in Blossburg.
You know what's funny? When Mike made it to, when he went to Stanford and then to the big leagues, and people talk about how small your town really was. I said, well, growing up, we had 4 red lights, but then we put in a Walmart and a Lowe's, and now we have 7.
Yeah.
It was like,
which is 700% more than what I grew up with. Steven says, I hate when the light just changed and people behind me, they start honking their horn. I hate that. I agree.
you got a couple seconds, buddy.
I agree.
Oh, I mean, I give it a moment, but I ain't missing the light because you missed the light.
It's so like.
Have you ever had this happen? This just happened to me not that long ago. I don't mean to cut you off. The light was turning yellow, and I was ready to punch it because I thought we could make it. The car in front of me didn't make it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Here's what it sounds like. It sounds like this is my biggest thing with driving. I think people, I don't know if it's like a race in their head. I don't know if they have this idea that like it's a contest. I don't know what happens. It's a game. People's inability, like, just so you had to wait at a light for 5 seconds. It's like, like, here's what I would say.
But isn't that your immediate reaction when it turns yellow and you're like, oh, that is your immediate reaction.
Here's what I would say. If you are one of those people, you got to find podcasts you like way more. You got to find music that you love. Like the idea that being in the car and the car sitting still kills you that much. You got to find a way. Like I love listening to music in the car. I enjoy listening to podcasts by myself in the car. There have been times in my life where if I got stuck for like 5 minutes in traffic, it was like it didn't even faze me because I was like, oh, I'm going to get to finish this podcast now before I.
Well, listen, I've pulled up in front of my house and not gone in. I've driven a couple extra blocks or laps around blocks so I could finish the song.
There you go.
I've done that. But don't tell me. Well, I will say if there might be something wrong with you. When you're driving down the road and it's green and it's green and it's green and it turns yellow, but you know you can make it, there's a little bit of excitement there in your day. As opposed to when it turns yellow and you're like, I got to stop. You feel like you just lost a little bit.
I don't disagree with that. I think some of this too also comes down to time and how you view time. And like, I have a completely different view on time that drives everyone else crazy. Like I realize I am the jerk when it comes to the conversation about time. I'm very aware of that.
So anyway, shot clock. That is like, I should make a list of the things that are going on my presidential platform, but shot clock at the drive-through. Absolutely.
Last night I saw John Mulaney. I don't even know how to transition to this now. Last night I saw John Mulaney at Penn State. For those who don't know, John Mulaney was a writer for SNL. He got himself into a little bit of trouble. His newest special is really, really interesting. He talks about rehab for almost the entire show. It's about his intervention that he had with his friends, him going into rehab, and now him coming back out of it and trying to start up comedy again. Really, really interesting.
It was cocaine, wasn't it?
It was a number of things. He lists them all off in the show.
Okay.
But cocaine was definitely one of the headliners, per se, of his drug issue. A couple of things about the show in itself, and eventually, maybe we can get back to the rehab part of it. It is neat. It was my first comedy show that I'd gone to since before COVID. So it did I had this moment looking around, kind of like, I can't believe we just didn't do these things for a year and a half. Like I still have to wrap my head around the idea that like we just didn't do this stuff.
Was it sold out?
Pretty close. Obviously there were some empty seats here or there, but it was as close as you could have gotten. And not just like all the second row, third row, like it was, or I'm sorry, third level. It was packed.
Yep.
It was a no phone event, which I had never been to a no phone event. So have you been to one?
Mm.
So what they do is when you
Other than the courthouse,
but when you walk into the courthouse, what do? They make you.
they tell you got to take it back to your car.
Okay, and they just won't let you enter with it.
There are the employees can have them. Certain reporters that are there all the time. But if you're as a normal schmuck,
okay,
well, if you and I, being normal schmucks, went to the courthouse, you cannot take your phone.
Interesting. So they had a company called Yonder, and what they do is they have these. It's almost like it's like a glove holder. Like you slide the phone down in. There's something to do with magnets. You close it, it clips, and now you can't unlock it. But then I'm pretty sure these Yonder ones, it also doesn't allow signal through. They it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like when you walk behind the thing to get your. It's like a
LED. Yeah. So for an X-ray. So,
yes.
Okay.
So you can't. There's not a signal that will go in or out the entire time. So just that whole process, because I'm a nerd, that was kind of fascinating to me to see these jackets and how they kept the phone.
And then it's on you?
You carry it around. You keep your phone with you.
How do you, so then on the way out, there's like a thingy
on the way out, there are attendees and they have baskets. And so you hand them your phone. They take this thing that pops the magnetic device loose, and then they hand it back to you. You slide your phone out and you drop the Yonder case into the basket.
That must have slowed getting out.
Because Bryce Jordan Center is so big, it wasn't that.
It wasn't bad.
The other thing that happens too is if you went with a group of 4 people, only one person brought their phone because the tickets would be on the phone, but then the other 3 knew they weren't going to be able to have their phone.
If you knew ahead of time, so yeah, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people didn't even bring their phone if their ticket was on someone else's phone.
All right, that makes sense.
Really, because again, I'm so weird. About probably 15,000 people there, no one on their phone. It was fascinating to see that many people interacting with each other, and nobody was able to look at their phone. I honestly was nostalgic. I honestly, for the first 45 minutes we were there, was questioning everything about our society and where we're at now. It was euphoric to watch people made eye contact with you. People said stuff to you that otherwise they never would have even looked up at you. I mean, people next to us were having conversations with us that just because what else were you going to do? The Mulaney show almost took a back seat to what was happening before the show.
I can see why it'd be interesting. Given my druthers, I'll keep my phone.
We were literally, even think of this, and this is how weird it was. You said, boy, it must have taken a while for people to get in and out. I've never seen a place more functionally moving than this place because everybody was present. Nobody was just looking down and walking, right? Or sidestepping over to take a call or anything. It was lines moved faster, aisles cleared quicker, everything functioning in that building all of a sudden made sense because there was no distraction to anybody.
Yeah, I get it.
In their thing. It was in case you can't tell, I was flabbergasted. I could not believe that it was happening.
It's interesting. It is interesting, but no, I've never been to one. I can imagine why comedy shows do it more than rock concerts.
Yeah.
Because I bet it translates better. They're just worried about people recording it and bootlegging it.
So his was interesting because this might loop us back to the rehab part of it. So originally when I was going to see the show, that's what I thought. I thought for sure this was just his way of making sure no one recorded it, put it online, and now maybe people want to come see the show. As he's doing the show, he's telling everybody about his intervention, which is hilarious because he quotes it as the most star-studded intervention in the history of time. And so he's actually naming the people that were at his intervention. It's really fascinating.
Like who?
Do
you remember any?
Nick Kroll, Bill Hader was there.
Okay.
Seth, late night talk show. Seth
Meyers.
Yes, I wanted to say MacFarlane, but that's.
Yeah, I was gonna. That was the first one I thought.
Seth Meyers there. It was basically an NBC SNL of who's who was at John Mulaney's intervention to sit him down and try to talk him into rehab. So as he's talking about rehab, he does this neat part where obviously because it's a college campus, he does this kind of don't do drugs, but I'm going to make light of doing drugs, but don't do drugs. That's kind of like the whole spiel for a little bit. But then he also does this thing where he asks the crowd, like, who else here has gone to rehab? Is there anybody here willing to talk about it? And he has these like little pockets of minutes where he's just talking to the people about like their rehab experience versus his rehab experience. And he's making light of it and he's having some fun with it. But it dawned on me, that's why we don't have our phones. Because now people in the crowd are willing to basically tell their stories or are willing to speak up. Whereas if people had their phones, there's no way anybody would actually raise their hand and say, like, I had been to rehab or any of that stuff. And it really opened up, again, like this whole idea of like, I agree with you. I'm not saying that I want to give up my phone. All I'm saying, though, is that experience for 2.5 hours where 15,000 people and nobody had their phone, everything, it was, again, like everything was better. The show was better. The experience was better. And I can't explain that to you. Like, it's if you were one of the 15,000 people there, I don't like when you say maybe, like, how do you, let me put it to you this way. If I have my phone, I don't visit with anybody around me. The lines take longer. The show's completely different. There's definitely not this like emotional touch to the show where he's reaching out and talking to people. And so I just don't see how the show is better.
Here are my two thoughts.
Phones.
Because so here's my immediate thought. I know John Mulaney and I enjoy John Mulaney because of my kids. My kids are the ones who, like, I've never gone out of my way to watch a John Mulaney special, but my kids have come to me like, here, we're watching this tonight.
So you would not have been shocked how young the crowd was, because I was surprised.
Okay. So for me, part of the enjoyable experience would have been texting my daughters who are away at college who couldn't have been there.
Okay.
So that would have been, it wouldn't have been as important to me to talk to the person next to me. I would have wanted to connect with them because it mattered. And I get what you're saying, where people just do it in general to pass the time. But in this particular instance, that's what would have mattered to me.
Isn't there? Okay. But then wouldn't you have taken your kids with you?
Well, they're in college.
I understand. But like, you guys could go see Mulaney together at some point.
Maybe.
There's nothing you just described that we did not do when we left the show at 9.
And I get it, but it's different. I think it'd be different, but that's the other aspect that I was going to say is being someplace where, like we did a story earlier this summer. Master P was here in Williamsport talking about drugs and overdoses and things like that. And I heard he was back. Actually, I heard he's been here twice now. I was there the first time. He was at Antioch Baptist Church, and I covered it. And he spoke, but then a lot of people in recovery spoke. And I don't necessarily. I'm sure there are people who wouldn't have spoken because if cell phones were there. But the people who seem to really have, I don't want to say kicked it, but are the people who have owned it and the people who are open about it. And there are some very, there's a level of bravery. There's just a level of honesty and openness about people who are in recovery.
But I think those people have made the choice. Like, if you're going to that with Master P, you have made the choice to speak on this.
Fair enough. Okay, I see your point.
The people.
This is kind of on the spot. They didn't know it was coming.
When John Mulaney goes up on that stage and he's talking about his rehab, first of all, the show's incredible. It's unbelievably, it's really eye-opening. Not just because he's a great performer and he's funny, but you can see everything he's doing is he's just trying to get the crowd to open up to the idea of rehab. And then after he talks about it for 10, 15 minutes, it's like, anybody else go to rehab? Anybody else? But because he's already talked about it for 10, 15 minutes, it opens the door. Then he goes into like how he ended up there and the things he did. And then 10, 15 minutes, he's kind of like, what did you do? Like, what was your vice? Like, what was... And so everything he's doing is just opening up the crowd's ability to kind of lean into telling their story along with his. It was really, really well done. And I just don't know if I think if phones are in the building, I don't think it works. Like I
Maybe.
just don't think the show is able to do what it does. I know that's a very simplistic way of putting it, but
no, I get it. It is a
so this
it's
is
an interesting psychological.
so then I started,
And I like on the screen how it looks like on John Mulaney's schedule this year. He's playing against Penn State all by himself.
That's probably true. Well, he's from New York State, so he probably Rutgers or Syracuse, somebody. So then my wheels got spinning because I started thinking about the biggest events I've been to lately. So concerts, I started thinking I've been to a couple of Pirates games this summer, and I started to try to think how my experience would have been different if you wouldn't have been allowed to have phones. And every single one of them, I couldn't come up with a way that it wouldn't have been better. I can't come up with a way where I wouldn't have had more social interaction with the people around me. The logistics of getting in and out and getting to the places wouldn't have been better. Where like the actual engagement with the product that I went to see, I wouldn't have been more involved with it. Like I couldn't come up with a way that my summer events would not have been better.
You don't have a camera.
What do you need the camera for? You're
to
there.
Take pictures. That's what cameras do.
You're there.
Yeah, but still, it's like
the
greatest part of a cell phone is that you have a camera everywhere.
I would imagine it's the communication part that you had hinted at earlier. Like when you were like, I would have wanted to share the experience with my
maybe the
daughters.
communication
I mean, that's
is easiest,
the
but
the camera's a big part of it. This is what I would say though. Like if that's your best answer is like, what about the pictures? Like, I don't know. Because again, I guess the difference is I'm talking about the 2 to 3 hours you're in it. Right? Like not once you're out of it, because then you want the memories and you want the photos and
right.
you want and not before it, because before it, like you want the GPS and you want to be able to get there and you want to be able to have your tickets available on your phone and yada yada yada. But like in the moment, from like the moment you walked through the gate to the moment you walked out of the gate, I honestly think every experience I would have had this summer in concerts or sporting events would have been better without my phone.
I agree. I understand the fact that having the phone there distracts a little bit. You are not 100%.
Never.
But for the 95%, for the 5% I lose, I'll take the phone because it makes the overall experience better.
I guess that's the difference. I don't think it's 5.
Well, I think it's variable depending on how interesting the game is that you're at, or where are you, or what,
But isn't
I mean, a comedy show's different. Kind of like, I don't want to say like a concert's different, but between the bands, between the opening act and the whatever, give me my phone. Because
see, it's interesting. Go ahead.
So that's, I don't know. And there's
what's interesting is that you see, and maybe this is like, I've always argued this is some small town stuff. I think there's an idea, like when you grow up in a small town, things are as interesting as you make them. Whereas the bigger of a place you live in, things are only as interesting as they are. So like, impress me, because if not, I can go do something else. And so what you just described to me is very much that debate between like, should things be interesting because they have to impress you, or are things interesting as you make them out to be? Like your engagement and how much you dive into those things determine how much fun it is or how exciting it is. Or, I mean, people, like if you talk to kids in small towns all across America, they can make stupid stuff seem like the most fun and exciting thing ever because there's no other, it's as entertaining as you make it.
Okay, right. I get what you're saying.
So what you just described me, when you say like, listen, like the opening act, that's not that entertaining. Or like, well, a baseball game could be a drag, like it's not, I guess I just grew up in an environment where like you kind of have to make your own entertainment. Like you have to make your own fun. So your engagement determines that.
I mean, I get it. But so I'm at the Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, Joan Jett concert this summer. So there's 3 gaps between bands.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're at a concert, what do you do between bands? You walk around. Mm-hmm. You walk to the merch tent. You walk to the thing. And so I could make the argument that texting whoever I wanted to text with, or checking box scores, or doing whatever was way more entertaining than walking around. But you get a lot of these aspects where like walking around is.
Do you talk to strangers? Like when you go to things, do you like talk to people as they walk by you, or that like
As they walk by me, no.
as you have like shared experiences with them?
If we're sitting there
Uh-huh.
and they're sitting in front of me for an hour, then after a while conversations sometimes kick up.
Okay.
But I don't go out of my way to
Okay.
no.
Interesting.
Like no.
Because that could play a part in it too.
You just stop people and start talking to them?
I think there's this idea of like, what do you have to lose? Like, there's nothing like, what are they're going to tell you to shut up? All right. Like, I already.
See, that would bother me.
I already didn't have someone to talk to.
Yeah, that would bother me.
Yeah. See, you don't like, we've talked about this before. You don't like denial.
I don't want someone to tell me like you're annoying.
Interesting. So anyway, John Mulaney was great. That was my experience. The show is incredible.
It is a fascinating, I mean, you're the only one that ever brings it up in my life.
Okay.
I can honestly say that. But there is an element of being somewhere when you don't have your phone and you kind of, because it only happens to me when I forget my phone. And sometimes maybe I'll go to the gym and I'll leave my phone. And then I go through the panic of where is it? Did I lose it? Is it? And I'm like, nah, it's probably laying right there where I left it. So then there is a level of relaxation where I don't have it. I can't look at it.
Right.
So I'm going to be done. But on the flip side, in my world, there's also a level of I don't want to make anyone worry. And there are, in my world, generally, if someone texts me and I see it or I'm not busy, I text right back. And I've had people after a while, depending on what I was doing, if I was working or whatever, and I've had people call me and they're like, I texted you an hour ago. I thought you were dead.
Yeah, but that's weird.
And it just depends how you react.
We're on different sides of that. I'm not even saying you're wrong. We just see that very like, to me, like, what did you like? I mean, less than 2 decades ago, like, you couldn't, like, that was life. Like, you just, it wasn't.
But there's lots of things that are different less than 2 decades ago.
I get that.
Doesn't make
the idea that somebody's dead because like they didn't have their phone is, I don't know. Like, I think that says more about the other person.
It's also to assume that someone's dead because they were supposed to be home at a 10 o'clock curfew, but it's midnight. But if you're that person that's waiting 2 hours for someone who said they'd be home 2 hours ago, lots of thoughts run through your head.
You're comparing a physical feat to a like textual feat. Like like curfew at 10 o'clock, like if you're not there, yes, there's a physicality to the fact that they are not where they're supposed to be. It's different. The idea that my phone is just supposed to always be with me is very different than the fact that I'm supposed to be somewhere at a certain time for a curfew. Two completely different things. There's a physicality to one that tells somebody they're not where they're supposed to be.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
My phone is always supposed to be where I'm supposed to be is something about society. At some point, without anybody actually deciding the guidelines of like cell phone use, at some point, people decided that if you don't have your cell phone on you all the time, you're just ignorant.
No. I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying you think that. I'm just saying society. Okay. I'm saying society has deemed that.
Well, we all have people in our lives. Like I have 3 kids, and one of them, if he is awake and he is not at like football practice or in school or someplace, that if I text him, he will text me right immediately every time. I have a daughter who I text her today, maybe not. It just depends. Like we have expectations from each person.
You and I had parents that neither had cell phones.
No.
Neither had the ability to consistently answer us or check up on us or know where we were. Okay. Do you think your parents are worse parents because of that?
No, but the technology isn't there.
Exactly. So here's what I'm saying though. Like, people just assume now because the technology is there, that's what would make them a good parent, is availability, which is ironic because availability was never like a top criterion for parenting before like 2005. Like there was an understanding within parenting.
But
there was only that I have to go to work and I have to do this and I have to do that. There was an understanding that like I want to know where my kid is and I hope I know where my kid is. But at the end of the day, like if my kid has some random question for me at whatever time, it's not a guarantee I'm going to be available to do that for them. And at some point it transitioned to now I think people think that makes them a good parent. Is that availability of like always answering or responding to them. It's weird.
It makes you a helpful parent if you can help when they need help. Like there were hundreds of generations that came along that were very good parents that never got their kid a polio vaccine because it didn't exist. But once the polio vaccine shows up, you should probably get it for your kid.
It's a vaccine that saves your life.
But I get it, but there's an ability. It doesn't mean people before the polio vaccine were worse parents, but once it shows up, you should probably get it. And it's no, but I'm just saying, you're like, they weren't worse parents because they didn't have their phone on them all the time. No, but they couldn't have their phone on them all the time.
Right, but that's what I think that's what I'm getting at. It's like if Jimmy's out doing something and Jimmy sends you a message when he was a kid, like when he was below the age of 5,